Long time. We were trying to remember where it was. Some spotlight.
5 or 6 years ago, yeah.
Something like that. Anyway, you're very welcome to the country number 1 and to the programme number 2, and tell us exactly why you're here, although we all know.
Well, we're doing a show in open air festival, one-day festival at Punchestown tomorrow, and that's our main.
Coming in especially for that?
Just for that, yeah, at the moment.
You came directly from the airport to us, which is great. I'm glad you got here safely, and you'll be reviewing Clarence Gatemouth Brown all right again for us in just a few minutes. But I think before going into that, I should ask you what you're up to. Gigging in Europe?
Yeah, well, we've been fairly busy in Europe since January. We went through Germany and France. We did some gigs in Italy, Switzerland, some gigs in England. And we're going to the States in a couple of weeks' time. So we've been fairly busy.
What's your best territory, Rory, at the moment?
I suppose parts of the continent are definitely fairly strong, but we've done fairly well in America and Australia and so on. You know, it fluctuates, and it depends on the album, it depends on the mood of a particular territory. But we seem to hold our ground reasonably well. You know.
The new album, how is that doing, Jinx?
It's doing very well, you know. Oddly enough, it's doing... Strange things happen. Jinx is done better in countries where they might have been lukewarm about, we'll say, stage struck, and then you get countries where they might be mad about some album that you did called, we'll say, Blueprint,
right.
And another country mightn't be that keen. It's very peculiar that way, you know.
Have you been to Japan at all?
Yes, yeah, we played there 2.5 years ago now, but we've been there 3 times.
What's it like?
It's great, but it's a peculiar place to visit, really. It's becoming, the first time we went, the audiences, they sort of watched the show and they clapped at the end of the numbers, and at the end of the show, as if it was a recital. Do you know what I mean? You felt like Julian Bream rather than, doing what we do. But, of course, in the last 5 years, they've sort of become more sort of like American audiences.
Right, and the Budokan concerts, which have been committed to album for a lot of people,
Dylan.
Eric Clapton, Dylan, yeah.
We should have done that, actually. But
actually would have been good, huh?
Well, I mean, they've got it made because they've beautiful mobile units there and everything, and the whole thing is laid on, so I'm sure, considering the sales of Clapton's album, for instance, he probably recorded it for, I don't know, X $100, you know.
Like buttons, literally.
Yeah, probably.
Your own gig now tomorrow, is that a one-off for Ireland?
Well, yeah, at one point we were going to do an Irish tour, sort of in the early part of the summer, but that's been pushed back now till October, November, but no later than Christmas, because we've been away for 2.5 years, and it's too long to be away from Ireland. So, how
do you think your own music has changed over the years? Because your fans span the generations. I mean, you get the 14-year-olds shaking their locks at you, and you shaking them back at them, and the 35-year-olds, the 40-year-olds.
Yeah. I don't know. I suppose I try to keep an open. I hate this wagging a finger at the audience. How dare you shake your hair? Or, for the same token, I hate to go over the line where you just become a headbanger band, and you kind of lose track of keeping some subtlety in the music and some ideas. So we try to keep, try to let it rock, and we try to know what we're doing as well. I think I just try to play from the heart and try not to analyze too much, which is what I'm doing now.
Yes, all right. We won't.
Feel guilty about it because you start off and you can afford one, right. And then bit by bit. Well, it's a hobby, and plus, if you tour in America, it's funny. You could be walking down the street and there'd be a street of pawn shops, and there'd be. Yeah, I don't sort of collect guitars like sort of Rolls Royces, or gold-plated guitars. I go for all these weird $50 things I see in blues books and things like that. And if I see a guitar that happened to be used by Tampa Red or Elmore James or something, and you hear the record at home, there's a certain cheap sound you get with these weird pickups and weird wiring diagrams and things. So I'm interested more in those funky guitars than actually having a whole fleet of beautiful Les Pauls or something.
How about your own playing? Do you have a unique guitar that you feel happiest with, like a golfer might have a club, and if he loses that club, or a snooker player a cue, and if he loses that cue, he feels very unlucky and he won't win a tournament, or in your case, you might feel comfortable at the gig?
Well, I have one particular favourite, obviously, which is a Stratocaster, but I'd like to think that I've gone on and jammed on other people's concerts with somebody else's amp and guitar, and I can make a fist of it, so I'm not that bound by the one guitar, but naturally I've adjusted it a few in certain ways whereby it suits me to a T. So I'm a little more at home with that, but I can mess around with other people's guitars.
That mention of jamming brings us nicely around to something that's going to happen tomorrow. I mean, you'll be doing your own set, of course, and some of the old favourites, some of the new things, but you'll also be joined by Paul Brady for a few songs at Punchestown. Have you rehearsed yet?
No, but Paul sent... Well, I have a few of his albums anyway, things that he did. I've got Hard Station and a couple of more folk things he did with Andy Irvine and so on. So I saw him playing in London. So he sent over a tape of a couple of songs that would just about, bridge the gap. So, and we'll do what we can tonight.
Yeah, he's an old rock and roller, of course.
Apparently, he used to play with Rock House or some band when he came down first, But
he used to look like Hank Marvin of the Shadows in those days.
Something
like that. Yeah. I'm sure he's listening in now. No offence to you, Paul, at all. So you're rehearsing tonight and getting it together for tomorrow afternoon.
That's right, yeah.
Fascinating experience, anyway.
I hope so, anyway. I'm looking forward to it because, I don't know, I hope the event is sort of, what would you call it, good, serious music, but still nice and light-hearted, because if you get a good day and it's an open-air event, and you get a certain vibe at these open-air things, it can actually go beyond just being a performance, you know what I mean? It can get into it can eclipse all that,
Well, let's hope that the rain keeps off, and even the clouds, because clouds can actually bring a slight downer to events like that.
Yeah, well, I think that the ideal thing is to have a little bit of a cool breeze, because if people are sitting there for 8 hours or so in extreme heat, like sometimes in America, by the time you get on, they're drained or they're burnt to a cinder. So I don't know. We keep our fingers crossed.
I can't see them being burnt to a cinder tomorrow somehow.
I don't know.
Right, I'll tell you what we'll do. Before talking about Clarence Gatemouth Brown, we'll hear a track from the album. Clarence Gatemouth Brown, All Right Again is the name of the album. That track was called Frosty, and Rory Gallagher is here to talk to me about Clarence Gatemouth Brown. Not exactly a household name, but you know him well.
Reasonably well. He sort of first appeared in sort of the late 40s. He was supposed to be the first guitar-led band with a big brass section and so on. But it's a different sound from that brass. That's very tight and sort of almost like the Crusaders type brass section. It's great, it swings, but it's the Albert Collins version of this is a sort of a very stinging type of thing. I think that this is only loosely based on Frosty. In fact, at the last 3 seconds, just as he starts playing the guitar, you want him to actually open up. In fact, it features the brass more than his guitar playing. But the main thing about him is that he sort of vanished, and then he was originally a T-Bone Walker stylist, and B.B. King was influenced by T-Bone and Gatemouth Brown. And of course, in the old days, he was one of the great blues showmen. He used to play the guitar behind his head, right, and and a lot of the photographs you'd see of him with the big baggy suit and so on. But then, oddly enough, the country singer and guitar player Roy Clark sort of, I wouldn't say he rediscovered him lately, but he kind of put him under his wing, and he made an album with him, and he got him a manager and so on. And he's in good shape. He's not. The sad part is that a lot of blues musicians, when they fade away, they come back. If they come back in very bad shape, health-wise and so on. But he's playing a little bit too mellow for my taste. But he's back and he's alive and well. And
how would he rate, though, in the hierarchy of bluesmen? I mean, say, compared to B.B. King, who's in the mainstream now, the last album, Love Me Tender, was very much a sort of a cabaret album almost, although there were some nice bits on it. Is this fellow purer than B.B.?
Well, B.B.'s funny. Over the years, even 20 years ago, I've one album and he did it, and it's all ballads. It's almost like Nat King Cole with guitar behind it. But then, I wouldn't say that... We'll put it this way, B.B., who's the maestro, has given credit to Brown and T-Bone as sort of his two electric influences. So, I mean, I couldn't say anything more than that. I mean,
any idea where the name Gatemouth came from, the nickname?
I think it's loudmouth or just show off or something like that. I don't know, or it could be something to do with, as you can see, he's dressed in cowboy clothes, and he's always had this black cowboy sort of. Well,
the other thing is that on both sides of the album cover, he is pictured, but in both cases he has his mouth closed.
I don't know. You could correct me on that. I don't know. It may be something to do with.
I'm feeling he may have a huge set of teeth or something like that.
Could be.
We'll hear another one now. Percy Mayfield wrote the next one, and it's called "Give Me Time to Explain."
Don't believe everything you hear, baby. Believe every little you see. 'Cause the way you looking at.
That's called "Give Me Time to Explain," and it's the second one we're hearing from Clarence Gatemouth Brown. The album is called "All Right Again," and Rory Gallagher is reviewing it for us. Do you like that? It sort of boogies along.
Well, the arrangements are tight and the sound is nice, but I'm not that keen on trombone solos and blues like that. And I'm not saying he should play guitar all over the track, but there again he just plays the last phrase, which is tasty. You'd love to hear that, somewhere, during the thing. But I suppose partly that's the concept of the album, is put the big band back together with Gatemouth. But I think, you see, his brass section back in the late 40s would be more akin to sort of, the music like sort of Louis Jordan and people like that, and tracks like Rocket 88, and that's which was a lot more sort of undisciplined, almost like
less accuracy but more joy.
Well, yeah, a bit more gospel-y, sort of, a bit more, a few more mistakes. So, but I suppose all credit to him. It's tight and it's well put together, and he's alive and well, and that's I think almost more important than sort of judging him too harshly. I'm sure.
I think according to the sleeve note here, he did make a couple of European albums, which were more or less the old-style Gatemouth that you were talking about, but this is his first chance in 20 years to make an album with a big band, and he probably decided to exploit them to the full and get them as tightly arranged as possible.
But even his guitar style has changed anyway. I saw him on TV doing a few shows live and in Montreux and so on, and he plays a lot more sort of a cautious style. It's very subtle, and at the time I saw him playing, he was playing through a phaser, which is more of, it's not really a bluesy sort of sound. But whereas before he used to play a lot more stridently.
Maybe it's of youth and age, who knows. BB's playing is so mellow now as well, although he can let rip.
We can, but yeah, the thing is that if you hear an old, because I feel terrible when you say, if you heard the 50s recording, you hear BB letting go. It's a sort of schneid way to be kind of talking about people, but it is a fact that some of the bluesers, by the time they get to Las Vegas, a lot of that, the backstreet sound is gone, unfortunately. This is why Buddy Guy is really still the boss, as far as I'm concerned, for the hard electric guitar, because he still breaks strings, he's out of tune, he doesn't get, and when he uses brass, it's usually just 1% off perfect, which is just right,
As someone who kind of shouts the blues from time to time yourself, just John Hutchinson, who was here earlier, I remember when he reviewed the, I think it was the Budokan album by Eric Clapton, that he remarked that he really wasn't wrenching heartstrings like he used to when he sang the blues because he was happy. And that his domestic life being sorted out limited in some way his ability to sing the blues effectively. I mean, what do you think? First of all, a white man singing the blues, and number two, do you have to be really miserable to enjoy the blues?
I don't know, that's been sort of at issue for years, you know what I mean? It's Lightning Slim, his producer years ago, he used to actually get onto Lightning's wife a week before the sessions and tell her to annoy him and give him a hard time, and it's as ridiculous as that. But I don't know what I expect. I think people get a crucifixion idea about the blues, that you're supposed to actually be in pain and so be up to your eyes in debt and domestic problems. I suppose that's part of it, but it's sad to think that that genius is always pain, or pain is genius, or that you can't really create properly unless you're in terrible state. I wouldn't go that far.
You're trying to tell us that you're not broke anyway at the moment.
No, that's not the point. I think it's more of transmitting the feeling, or being able to.
But of course, every night on the stage, actors and actresses manage to convey pathos and tragedy and so on, and presumably they go home and have a hearty meal and think nothing the worse of it, and come back the following night and do exactly the same thing again.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's. I wouldn't like to be the man to actually. I've heard various stories about like Richard Burton giving a great performance on stage, and Gielgud came over to him and said that was the best Hamlet or Macbeth you've ever done, type of thing. And he said the reason why is that he was in a bar next door before the thing, and he had such a long speech on stage, and he was full of lager, and he had to keep it intact. So you see what I mean?
Right,
You'd wonder where the
tension comes from. Who knows? Yeah. Rory, finally, for people who have never heard of Clarence Gatemouth Brown, what sort of an introduction is this album? I mean, is it an album to have, do you think?
I wouldn't think so. I mean, that's a haughty way of putting it. But I mean, if you were going to put your hand in your pocket and take a few quid out to buy one, I'd probably buy an older one. This is fine, but he's in recent years he's getting into playing fiddle as well. He's a peculiar. That's not the first time that you get blues artists who actually have an interest in country music, like Earl Hooker used to do the odd country number, but it always sounds peculiar. But no, this is a fine professional album, but it's almost like they just put him on like the stamp on the letter. It was, you could have almost superimposed any other blues guy there, which is rather than him transmitting the whole thing and putting the band around him, you know.
Right.
But I think it's professional. But I'd rather, you know, I think that you'd be better off buying something from the earlier days and then investigating.
Well, we'll play the odd track on this programme. If people like it, then they can go out and buy it. That's probably the simplest thing, rather than put their hands in the pocket straight away.
Yeah.
Rory, the best of luck tomorrow. Hope you enjoy yourself. Hope it doesn't rain upon you. That's the main thing. On us, I suppose, because I reckon I'll be down there myself. Mm-hmm. And hope the rehearsals go all right with Paul.
Well, even a bit of rain, we'll manage. I've seen some great open air gigs with the rain pouring down. So I'm touching wood now and crossing my fingers, so we'll see.
But if they're rained upon, you'll make the steam rise.
I'll do my best.
Right, Rory Gallagher, thanks very much for talking to us and reviewing All Right Again by Clarence Gatemouth Brown. Last track now. This is called Gate Walks to Board.